On today's Horror Watch, the Democrats have followed through on a promise. And it wasn't even one of the promises that make having political representation feel like Christmas morning, if you didn't happen to be looking through the window from outside like Tiny Tim with a newspaper route, and of course your experiences may vary. A fight is boiled over the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, promotes the introduction of a bill in the Senate that put the burden of paying for the infrastructure bill solely on corporate revenues and wealth income, a bill waiting for go-ahead from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York. What I've said merits some context. Nancy Pelosi, House Majority Leader and Democrat from California, swore an oath that she would drag down the infrastructure bill until a larger, more expensive families plan came into the Senate. I did not cover Chuck Schumer at that time. Joe Biden made the same oath, but wandered away after a time, presumably distracted by his presidency, or maybe a butterfly or something. He's a Democrat, I don't expect much. With this being standard operating procedure for the first policy fight of every presidency, what we're looking at when the U.S. Senate is inspired to uplift the country more than to do the job of the Office of Maintenance and Redundancy with a classy wood chip and mop bucket style, I think we're looking at is that America's people need to array their leaders into I Ching-inspired foundations with exponential dimensionality. And I honestly am baffled that I finished reading that sentence without cracking and being unwilling to finish. I know pain. Pain short easy do. That's what you get when you're surrounded by a bunch of lugheads with the tools to create a monster and none of the passions root themselves in yet undiscovered intelligence forms, emotional or otherwise. I often find myself blaming the office as a citizen for our own problems, but this sounds like it stinks of recent. So I'd rather if we could focus on the topic at hand and add that passion for rooting themselves in yet undiscovered intelligence forms, emotional or otherwise, to our to-do list. Politicians across the aisle often default to coercive or hopeless strategies when pulling for legislation that would please their own voters. They're often afraid of the total number of voters. They assume that people who are overly excited will become riotous or violent leftists who will not be overly concerned with their damage to progress ratio. Also, riot, 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 riot. And now that it's gotten awkward, I'll be moving on. We need a movement that'll act as three muses. One for what there is to do, and two for that there is much might be done. And we need to proactively bounty hunt for the marriage values of to have and to hold. I may not have many ideas, but I'd certainly like to see these adopted. Think about it. Since I have a little time left in my 3 minutes, I'd like to tell you that if you enjoyed this micro podcast, I produce a compilation program at the end of each week that I have hosted by Anchor. I hope you'll help me get paid.